it is impossible to prove scientifically any theory of origins. And that is because the scientific method is based on observation and experimentation, and it is impossible to make observations or conduct experiments on the origins of the universe. None of us were there, and we can't recreate it. It's important to remember that there is no such thing as an unbiased approach to the study of creation and evolution. We all have a set of beliefs and ideas based on our experiences. The only question is, which is the better bias? We will flat out admit to you that the bias that we have in this study, and it is this, the belief that God is the creator of the world and all that is in it, that he made man in his image, man did not evolve from apes, and that the Bible can be trusted as a book of information about creation. Evolution and creation are not just matters of science on one hand and religion on the other. There can be no doubt that evolution and creation are positioned in our society as competing beliefs. I mean, just look at the back of our cars. There's these little fish symbols on the back of Christians' cars and responded to by the little Darwin symbols on the back of others' cars. And then there came the inevitable big fish eating the little Darwins and, vice versa, and there it goes. Well, these are just the actions of competing belief systems. Often as believers, we feel defensive about even discussing creation. Science seems to have the high ground and the upper hand with the assumption that the theory of evolution is a proven fact. Any scientist would tell you, however, that there is no value to a science in which we cannot challenge assumptions and test theories. We should not be afraid to clearly state, as those who believe in a personal creator, that we have real problems with the theory of evolution. The problems with the theory of evolution, here's a couple of them. Number one, God is completely left out of creation. One of the greatest problems when buying into an evolutionist position is that it paints God as either non-existent or as cold and distant in the act of creation. The idea that God started it all with a big bang and then left things to work themselves out for themselves, that's totally foreign to the God that we read about in the Bible. He is a personal God who is intimately involved not only in creating, but also in sustaining the creation that he made. How about the idea that God somehow created through evolution? Well, we'll look at that more closely in just a minute. But Darwin himself rejected the idea of adding intervention by God into the concept of evolution. He said, "I will give absolutely nothing for the theory of natural selection if it requires miraculous additions of any one stage of descent." The probability of evolution by chance is another problem. What are the chances that life could begin by chance, chemical reactions in a prehistoric soup or sea? What are the probabilities of evolution successfully occurring? Discussing the possibilities of even one chain of amino acids combining by chance, listen to this, what this scientist says, Francis Crick. He is the co-discoverer of the molecular structure of DNA. He wrote, "This is an easy exercise in combinatorials. Suppose the chain is about 200 amino acids long. This is, if anything, rather less than the average length of proteins of all types. Since we have just 20 possibilities at each place, the number of possibility is 20 multiplied by itself some 200 times. This is conveniently written 20 to the 200th power. That is a 1 followed by 200 zeros. This number is quite beyond our everyday comprehension. For comparison, consider the number of fundamental particles, atoms, speaking loosely, in the entire visible universe, not just in our own galaxy with its 10 to the 11th power stars, but in all the billions of galaxies out to the limits of observable space. This number, which is estimated to be 10 to the 80th power, is quite paltry by comparison to 10 to the 200th power. Moreover, we have only considered a polypeptide chain of rather modest length. Had we considered longer ones as well, the figure would have been even more immense." Okay, what that's saying is the possibility of even this first step of evolution occurring by chance is a statistical impossibility. I got lost in that. I got lost when I had to just say multiply 20 by 200. Anybody else hopeless at math besides me? Because you're probably thinking, okay, isn't there a simpler way to say that? Well, Charles Ryrie, theologian, did. He said it requires an incredible amount of faith to believe that evolution could have caused, by chance, all life that ever did or does now exist. And to make it even more simple for those of us for whom science is difficult, one writer pictured it this way. The current scenario of the origin of life is about as likely as the assemblage of a 747 plane by a tornado whirling through a junkyard. Another problem is the lack of evidence for species to species